Before we get started, I just want to alert everyone to an important video that you've just recorded that will not be available to the public. Here, you discuss the upcoming geopolitical shockwave of what you call the most significant development in international finance since 1971. But then you explain how anyone can position themselves to profit from this crisis. Our viewers can access that video at londonreal.tv/Jim, and I highly recommend that everyone go watch that immediately after our conversation. So I had Robert Kennedy on my show in April of 2020 when we couldn't talk about anything on YouTube. We had to run him on our digital freedom platform, and I walked into that with my MIT education thinking that anything science-based was the right thing to do, aka vaccines. And Robert, I spent 90 minutes with Robert, and after he explained to me the lack of liability of these major pharmaceutical companies and walked me through the history, and he's an extremely intelligent guy. He understands history, political history. He's got figures and facts, that come right to the surface whenever he wants them. And at the end of that, he had convinced me and changed my mind almost completely. And I had another interview with him later, but I was always deeply impressed with Robert. Unfortunately, the media completely, called me anti-vaxxer and shut down any type of footprint. And so he really wasn't even known in America, even though I think he had the best-selling book in America for like a year or so in 21 or 22. Now he's coming out. I've seen some of his speeches. I feel like him running for president is the best PR move he's ever done, because now people are forced to listen to him. He was on a 2-hour Twitter space with Musk the other night, and I could just feel the room just shutting up and listening to this guy thinking, wow, this is something special. He doesn't sound like any other politician I've ever heard, especially a Democrat, because he's speaking the truth and he understands what's going on. What a concept, right?
Right. And you put your finger on it, Brian, because you can go down the list of policy position, RFK, like some, don't like some, or whatever. That's politics, that's fine. But he's the appeal and the reason for his success so far is he's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
There's politicians and the media, they're just full of lies. Spin would be putting it kindly. I would say lies. So just the fact that someone's actually, they know what you're talking about, they're speaking the truth.
Yeah.
That is so refreshing that it draws people to him, even if they don't agree with all of his positions. By the way, the media is now going to have to do a hatchet job on him to keep the Biden, puppet show going. And they'll misrepresent everything he said. He did a big interview the other day, and it might have been the Spaces thing with Elon Musk you're talking about, but I think it might have been some other, high-profile publication. But he was asked about the Second Amendment. And he said, you must say the Second. He goes, no. He says, I fully support the Second Amendment. It's been in the Constitution since 1787. But he made it personal. He said, I've grown up in rural areas, most of my life. He lived up in Rhinebeck on the Upper Hudson, but that's a rural area. That's not a big city. And then grew up in Virginia. People have guns. He said it's part of the culture. It had passed down through generations. I understand the meaning of it, et cetera. And as a lawyer and an honest lawyer, he can read the Second Amendment. There are parts of the Constitution you could debate, but the Second Amendment isn't one of them. It's like just plain English. So then I said, what about all these school shootings? He said, yeah, that's really bad. But why aren't we asking the tougher questions? These are pretty much all, 17 to 19-year-old males, and very few women shooters, a couple, but not many. Not people in their 30s and 40s, again, exceptions, but it's predominantly kind of 18 to 21-year-old males. He said, why are we looking at broken homes? Why are we looking at the drugs? Why is it that adolescents and teenagers in America are being swamped with pharmaceuticals, antidepressants, ADHD suppressors, Valium, various drugs, psychotropic drugs that with not totally understood side effects. You're taking 2 or more of them. What are the interactions? They haven't been studied. And he's very practical. He said, read the labels. They say may cause suicidal and violent behavior. It says that on the label. So we're feeding our kids, these drugs by the billions. They're sitting there playing video games for 10 years, mostly violent video games. And then we're surprised and they pick up a gun and shoot people. They probably think they're in a video game. So he said that's what we should be addressing. Why are we looking at the pharmaceutical companies? Why are we looking at the broken homes? Why aren't we looking at video game manufacturers? So those are things not protected by the Second Amendment that are much more likely to be the cause, or certainly the correlations are very high. It needs more research. But that is such a sober, smart, I've asked myself the same question, but that's such a smart approach to a serious problem. He doesn't wave the problem away. He said it's not the guns, it's the drugs and the behavior and the video games and the broken homes.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. But so that's the kind of thing that appeals to people.
Yeah, and I think then he links that even back to the Department of Defense and then goes after military-industrial complex. I mean, again, and he has seen into that dark, dark world of all of those institutions. I mean, obviously his uncle, potentially was taken out and by one of those institutions. And so, and then he's not afraid to call these companies out. Whereas every other candidate pretty much is in some way, shape, or form. It's an interesting race. Do you think he could beat Biden?
Possibly, yes. It's a long shot. I mean, just to be candid, and I do predictive analytics for a living, Brian, and I predict markets all the time, and that's hard enough. The one thing harder than predicting markets is predicting politics. We all know the cliches, a week is a lifetime, and it's true. That's true when it comes to politics. So you got to be careful about getting too far over your skis. But the short answer is yes, and I would put a lot of weight on this New Hampshire situation and Iowa that I just described, where the DNC's trying to rig the primary schedule to favor Biden, but New Hampshire's not having it, and RFK gets it. And like I say, if you can't win the New Hampshire primary and not be taken seriously in the next election. And why was South Carolina so important to Biden in 2020, which it was? Well, African Americans. Well, there's a lot of affection for the Kennedy family. I mean, John Kennedy, before he died, was working on the Civil Rights Act. Okay, Johnson passed it, and credit to Johnson for that. But Kennedy was going down that road. Kennedy was talking to Martin Luther King on a regular basis. RFK, RFK Jr.'s father, was, taking the lead in civil rights. We weren't where we needed to be. We hadn't come far enough as a country. But Kennedy started moving in that direction. So and then, of course, Teddy Kennedy, wasn't president, but had, 6 terms as a U.S. senator. So there's a lot of affection for the Kennedy name in politics. So I wouldn't underestimate how well RFK Jr. might do in South Carolina, even trying to rig it in favor of Biden.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.